Today we'll be covering knife sharpening. Now the first thing we'd like to look at is the difference between honing and sharpening. Honing is basically a final polishing or aligning process to the edge of a blade, whereas sharpening is after repeated maintenance honing, it will eventually not really, the edge won't be as stable as it used to be, and it'll start to really come undone or become less sharp very quickly. When that happens, it's time to do an actual sharpening, which is grinding away of material of the blade. So it's a good bit more material being removed versus honing, which is more just aligning, maintenance, kind of keeping everything where it needs to be. If you were to look at the edge of your blade for any particular knife under a microscope or some other very fine looking device, you would see that as smooth as it looks to your eye, it's actually a ton of little microscopic teeth sort of opposed with each other, and they're all along the blade, and there's all sorts of things we could talk about, but I mean the bottom line is, at that point, when you're trying to chop and it's very forceful, you have a junk knife. Let's take a look at how to fix that. In days of old, you basically had different grits of stone, actual stone, that you would either soak in water or some sort of oil, and that was about the only way that you could sharpen a knife. And it's still a great method, it still exists, and it's a great method, but nowadays with technology, I mean, there are so many different options out there for sharpening knives. Now in sharpening, you're actually removing metal from the edge. You're usually doing more than one angle, and for a kitchen knife, like a chef's knife, you're looking for about an 18 to 20 degree angle. Anything that is less than that is too rough of an edge. It's more of like a utility type knife, not really so much for slicing and stuff in the kitchen. And if you go any more than that, then your edge will be very, very likely to chip on you pretty frequently. And chips are pretty bad for a blade because as high as they go up, that whole edge of metal has to be taken off to level it out before you can actually install your new edge. First up, let's have a close look at the traditional grinding type whetstones. Now, they call them whetstones, but most of them on the market today can be used either wet or dry. The only thing to keep in mind is if you decide to go wet with it, if you're using oil, stick with oil, and if you use water, stick with water. They don't mix, so you don't want to soak your stones in one time and something else the next. So that's the only thing you have to keep in mind with that. The other thing is you'll need at least 2 stones, a coarser stone and a finer stone, as far as the grit goes. With your blade set at a 20 degree angle to the stone, you want to go all the way from the back of your blade in an arcing motion, grind all the way to the front, the tip of your blade, down the stone. Now you want to repeat that 8 to 10 times on this original side, and then after that you want to turn it over, and however many strokes you do on this side, you want to do exactly that many on the opposite side to get your edge identical. Once we've evenly ground our edge on our coarse stones, and we want to move on, you want to clean the blade first. Any little particles and grit that are on the edge of the blade, you want to clean that off, and then you'll set up and begin on your finer stone, doing the same exact thing, all the way from the back of the knife, arc all the way to the front tip at a 20 degree angle, 8 to 10 times on one side, and then the same exact thing on the other side, however many times you do it, depending on how far off of sharpening your knife was. With that being wrapped, you'll move on to your steel or hone, your knife steel. You want to put that last polish with your steel after sharpening. And then if you really, really want to get a mirror, just super smooth edge, you'll finish up with a leather strump for really, really fine polishing.